Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good to be in the house of the Lord today. Tell your neighbor Shabbat Shalom and Boker Tov and Chag Sameach, Hanukkah Sameach. We are on the last day of Hanukkah before the last evening. And so tonight we will light our candles for the last time, and kind of sad in a sense, you think about it. We're in the 7th day of Hanukkah, and we have 8 more days. The 8th day left. I should have 8 more days. I wish it was 8 more days. My daughter wishes it was 8 more days, so that means 8 more gifts, right? So hopefully you have a bulletin today. We're glad to be in the house of the Lord and looking at Parashat, or I should say Parashat Miketz. And we're going to take a look at a message called Victim's Frown or Victor's Crown. Tell your neighbor, Victim's Frown or Victor's Crown. You choose. I got a little bit of a mix of Egyptian culture with a little bit of Roman culture because it reminds me of the Greek games. And we'll be talking a little bit about how it relates from the Jewish world to the Gentile world as we look at the words of the Apostle Paul. So I'm going to go ahead and explain to you why I did this. I want you to take a look at this picture of this Olympiad who's a little sad and he's frowning a little bit. And sometimes we feel like this in life, don't we? We feel like a victim. How many of you ever felt like a victim before? It's like, woe is me, oy vey. You know, it's like you're always wanting someone to hear your story, your whole Megillah, and all of a sudden, you know, we realize that we're living in a pity party. And we have to get out of the victim's crown, and we need to move on to a victor's crown. Let me hear a hallelujah for the victor's crown. And I love it when they're able to use not only the medals, but also the ancient wreath there, because the word Stephanos is the Greek word for a victor's crown or wreath. Do you know who the first martyr in the New Testament was? Stephen. His name is Stephanos. His name means victor's crown. So it's interesting that Yeshua the Messiah gave him a 10. Gave him a score. He stood up and said, well done, my good and faithful servant, because he died in faith. How many know a Jew should always die in faith, just like a Gentile believer should always die in faith in Messiah. Amen? So we're always thankful for that today. So we say, Bruchim Havaim. Welcome to all of our first-time guests. We're glad you came here today. Let's give it up for those that have come here for the first time. Amen. And I like this picture of the Hippodrome. I actually went to this location to the 2014 with Planet Shakers. I was helping their Bible college students embellishing upon what the tour guide was giving them and giving them some Hebrew studies as a Messianic rabbi. And this was the Hippodrome. And this is not my picture, but this is a picture of the Hippodrome in Caesarea, Israel. And so you can think about how even Israel was influenced by the Gentile world even in the 1st century. You can think about this and even how it affected the writings of the Apostle Paul. So there's a little backdrop there. Bereshit, or the book of Genesis 41:1 through 44:17 is our Torah reading. Zechariah 2:14 through 4:17 is a great read for Hanukkah. And also we have Romans 10:1 through 13 talking about the salvation of the Jewish people. How many ready for a little taste of Torah? All right, we used to do 10 minutes of Torah. Now we're doing a little taste of Torah. Get a little nosh in there, a nice kosher nosh. This is kind of a good Jewish soup for the soul right here. This is good Jewish soul food, all right? And so as we take a look at the Torah portion, we're going to take a look at Genesis 41:1. And it says in the Tree of Life version, now at the end, or Miketz, the end of 2 whole years. Really, it's 2 years of days in Hebrew. And it says that Pharaoh was dreaming. Behold, there he was standing by the Nile, literally standing over the Nile, because Pharaoh actually thought he was a god, like the god of the Nile. He was standing over the Nile. And then behold, there were 7 cows, good looking and beefy. I mean, no rabbi loves a ribeye. So that kind of gets me hungry there. And they grazed in the reeds. Then behold, there were 7 other cows coming up from the Nile, and they weren't so pretty, were they? They were, as the text says, ugly and emaciated. And they stood beside the cows at the edge of the Nile. Then the ugly, emaciated cows, the skinny cows, and actually I do like a good skinny cow every once in a while. You know the skinny cow. You ever taste a skinny cow? It's not what these are. The skinny cows here, it says, they stood beside the cows at the edge of the Nile. The ugly, emaciated cows ate the 7 good-looking, beefy cows, and Pharaoh woke up. It's interesting that Pharaoh was dreaming while he was asleep, and then he woke up. I pray that that's something that every non-believer does. I pray they wake up. Because when we're in sin, it's like we're asleep. In fact, it's almost like we're in a coma. Some of us are living a nightmare when we're not a believer. Our life can be a dream, but it can also be a nightmare if you don't live it for God. Amen? It's funny that Pharaoh wakes up from this state of being asleep. I like to think of it spiritually. And he looks for a spiritual interpretation to his dream. How many know the world is looking for a spiritual, enriching, deeper meaning of life? And the only way they're going to get it is they find a Joseph. They need a Joseph. We need more Josephs in the world. How many know we can be a light in this dark place during Hanukkah and even throughout the whole year by being a Joseph-like figure, by being able to give an answer from God to a person that doesn't know God? The bus stop, the hospital room, courtroom, in the schoolhouse, in the workplace, in your family, among your neighbors, among your friends, even your enemies. Oh, it's quiet in this old Catholic Church today. I could have said Presbyterian. I don't mean to make fun of any certain religion, but you know, one time I went to Louisiana to visit my grandmother, who, the Italian side of the family and the French side of the family, they lived as Catholics because they had to hide their Jewish identity. And it's funny that I went to a Catholic church for the first time, and it was like the last time because it was so cold in that cathedral. I mean, everything was marble, and it was freezing. I mean, like literally freezing. So I'm not actually making fun of the religion, but actually Catholic churches are usually very cold. But this is a Messianic fellowship, so let me hear you praise the Messiah today. Give a shout out. All right. Now I know you're awake. So Pharaoh what? Pharaoh woke up. Now, let's take a look at last week's portion, chapter 37, and compare Pharaoh's dream with Joseph's dream. It says in Genesis 37:3, "Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his other sons, because he was the son of his old age. So he had made him a long-sleeved tunic. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak to him in shalom," meaning peacefully to him. "Then Joseph dreamed a dream and told his brothers, and they hated him even more." Never tell your dream to a dream hater. In other words, don't ever tell your dream to someone that already doesn't like you, because they can't appreciate your dream. It's like throwing pearls before swine. They will not value the pearl. And it's amazing when you think about these brothers who are family, they're mishpocha, but they hate their brother because their father loved him more than them. Isn't it amazing that everything goes back to a father issue? Yeah. Have you given your father issues to God? Mm-hmm. Think about it for a minute. How many have had issues with fathers in their life, whether a physical father or a spiritual father or someone that played a role of a father-like figure in your life, and maybe you had issues with that person? Do you know you will actually funnel God as a heavenly father to the view you had of your earthly father? Yes. You funnel God as a father through the view of your earthly father. Whether functional or dysfunctional, we will be messed up for years thinking about God as a father and think, wait a minute, my father was never around. My father never cared for me. My father never showed me affection. And you'll think God's the same way. You've got to get rid of your father issues. Well, look what it says in verse 5 again. "Then Joseph dreamed a dream and told his brothers, and they hated him even what? More. They already hated him, now they hated him even more." Look at verse 6. "Then he said to them, 'Please listen to this dream I dreamed. There we were binding sheaves in the middle of the field. All of a sudden my sheaves arose and stood upright. And behold, your sheaves gathered around and bowed down to my sheaf. Will you truly be a king over us?' His brother said to him. 'Will you really rule over us?' So they hated him even more because of his dreams and because of his words." Do you really want to know why you should never share your dream to someone, one, who doesn't appreciate it or doesn't appreciate you? The number one reason you should not share your dream to someone who really can't help you with your dream is until you understand the dream yourself, you can't share it the right way. So notice that he never interpreted his own dream. Joseph never said anything about his dream. He never said, you're going to bow before me. He said, you're sheep. You know that old song, bringing in the sheaves, we will go rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves. Now, if my sheaves bow to your sheaves, it's not me bowing, it's the sheave bowing. So that means something that I possess and you possess, there's a relationship, but if I interpret it the wrong way, I can think you're telling me that I'm going to bow to you. Really what it was the abundance of Joseph was going to be the supply for those who had not enough resources. And so it's actually a picture of what he was going to do in Egypt. Now, if you take a look at the concept here in verse 8, the latter part, so they hated him even more because of his dreams and because of his words. Now, look at a little drash I created from our morning manna as we looked at our devotional this week. How many have been following along online or following the website? I only got 5 days out this week. That's all I could accomplish, and I hope you were able to feast on that. Let me hear those who actually did get a chance to read some of it. Okay, some of you got to get on board, because I'm telling you, we're going someplace as a congregation. The only way to grow together is to study together, and this is what I've created for us to study together. And actually, there's people that are beating you. They're actually online, they're in other countries reading the morning manna and sending emails and texts about how it's blessing them. Why should it bless the world if it doesn't bless our own house first? And so you got to be reading with us so that when we get to the message on Shabbat, see, your morning manna leads to the showbread. I can show you the bread if you get the morning manna every single day. Make sure that you read it, study it. Even if you're not able to read it first thing in the morning, read it sometime in the afternoon, read it in the evening. Read it whenever you can, because it's going to help us grow in the Torah. Now, it says here, Joseph started out with favor from his father, which led to bad blood between his brothers. But ultimately, the highs and lows of his journey became the obstacle course of an amazing Olympic victory. He overcame every hurdle that was set before him by his Creator. We can learn from his life that anything that the Lord allows in our journey, whether seemingly bad or good, is for the purpose of making us and not breaking us. Look at some of the highlights of his astounding character. So if we look at Joseph's character, we see some of the things he learned. He used his negative experience with his dream to interpret the dreams of others. Notice that his gift wasn't perfected until he took what was given to him and really began to use it for other people. Second, he knew how to balance his pit experience with the pleasures of the palace. So notice the two extremes, from the pit to the palace. He knew how to balance those. Sometimes we have highs and lows, but it's learning to steward the gift within us and steward the blessings in our life when we have a lot or when we have a little. We have to steward the balance between the pit and the palace. Number 3, he learned integrity in the midst of temptation in Potiphar's palace. He learned integrity in the midst. He was able to be integral and not fall into the trap of Potiphar's wife. Number 4, he developed administrative skills managing Potiphar's house and the prison house. So even though he went from the pit to Potiphar's house, right, to a prison before the palace, he learned to actually be a good administrator in both Potiphar's place and in the prison. Because in every area he became second in command. You might be in a pit right now, but God's trying to elevate you. Amen? Number 5, he avoided bitterness and instead allowed forgiveness to fulfill his future. Are you still holding on to something your brother, your sister, your family, your mother, your father, your cousin, your neighbor, the kid on the playground when you were 2? Are you still holding on to that? Are you still wanting to mudsling a little bit and are you still bitter? Are you resentful? Are you regretting some things? Not only what others have done to you, but things you've done to others. Even holding unforgiveness is just as painful as throwing a rock or cutting someone with a knife. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. It's funny, it was the words of Joseph that hurt them the most, because every time he told his dream, all they could hear is, in their head, our Father loves him more. Our Father loves him more. Have you ever thought that God loved someone else more than you because they got blessed and you could be happy for their blessing because you thought maybe God in heaven? Come on, our dysfunctional view of our own fathers makes us filter God through that dysfunctional lens. oh, God's blessing them. Why doesn't he bless them like he blesses me? Instead of saying, wow, if God bless them, my blessing must be coming next. Because we need to declare the blessings of God over our life. We can't live kvetching all our life. And living in the pity party of oy vey, oy vey. You can't do that if you want the blessings of God. You've got to speak the blessing if you're going to receive the blessing.
Amen.
Amen. And then we also see number 6, he realized God's reward is better than man's retaliation. God's reward is better than man's retaliation. I love number 7. He viewed the evil that was plotted against him as God's intention for good. What you meant for evil, God turned it around for the good. Now, I'll go a little further on the commentary this is actually commentary of Bible college curriculum that's being accredited right now, so I can't wait to really just let loose on this material, but I'm kind of giving you a little nosh today. Joseph masterminded a complete strategy of survival during a national crisis. Wow, we need a Joseph right now, don't we? Israel needs a Joseph right now. The world could use more Josephs in politics, business, economy, and especially the kingdom of God. He was often discouraged because he was a dreamer until his dreams came true. Let's learn from the dreamer how to dream big and work hard. How many know we got to dream big? We got to work hard to fulfill those dreams. Now, I take a look at a little bit of the emotion that's going on in this portion. It says, how frustrating it must have been for Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, with all power at his fingertips, to feel powerless with his dreams. He couldn't interpret them. Have you ever felt that you were powerless when it came to understanding your own dreams? This is from Morning Manna. That tend to confuse your head and your heart? Or maybe you simply don't understand why your life seems to downgrade into a nightmare instead of an exciting dream-filled adventure. Like Joseph, the favor of the Lord was with him, even when the enemies of life surrounded him. Joseph refused to let his dream plummet into the pit that his brothers set up for him. Don't you think more people need to study the life of Joseph?
Yes.
I heard that it's the most favorite story that kids love to hear. Whether in a synagogue, whether in a church, a cathedral, doesn't matter, any place of education, any family setting. When the story of Joseph is told, kids relate to it. Because everyone's felt like a Joseph before, haven't they? So when you look a little further, you see he refused to get trapped by the seduction of Potiphar's wife or pride's deception to take what was not entrusted to him. His stewardship showed his faithfulness to the Heavenly Father's divine dream, even if it meant he had to manage the pit or the prison before being promoted to Pharaoh's palace. Let's be like Joseph and shine the light this Hanukkah season in the midst of the surrounding darkness in this world. Amen. How many would sign up to be a Joseph? Amen. A light in a dark place. Now, how many ready for a little nosh of the Nabi? Yes. A little nosh of the Nabi, that's the prophet. Let's take a little nosh today. It's going to be a real short nosh. It's only from 2 readings today. One from the prophet Yeshua or Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 27. It says, why do you say, O Jacob, and assert, O Israel, my way is hidden from Adonai, and the justice due me escapes the notice of my God? Have you not known? Have you not heard? Adonai is the eternal God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not grow tired or weary. His understanding is unsearchable. In other words, God saw Joseph in the pit. God saw Joseph in Potiphar's place. God saw that he resisted the temptation. God saw him in the prison, and he saw him the 2 years that he was waiting, counting the days as he's counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Shabbat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Shabbat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Shabbat. He was counting years by days. I believe those Shabbats were important to him. And I really believe that we need to realize our God sees it all. And he does not grow tired or weary. His understanding is unsearchable. So even when you don't understand why he does things, just know that his thoughts are higher than yours and his ways are higher than yours. Now look what it says in verse 29. This is where it comes to you and I in this Olympic strategic victory over darkness. He gives strength to who?
Weary.
So even though God doesn't get weary, this is actually why he's able to give strength to the weary. And to the one without vigor or strength, he adds might, or he increases strength. Even youths, the young people, grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. What do young men do? Stumble and fall. Think of young athletes stumbling and falling. But they who wait on Adonai will what? Renew their strength. Come on, talk with me. Renew their strength. They will soar with wings as eagles. They will run and not be weary. They will walk and not faint. Man, what athletes we could become spiritually if we would realize that when we're tired and when we're weak and when we're weary, God says, just ask, I'll give you strength. Look at Proverbs, from Solomon's words, Proverbs, the book of Mishlei, chapter 4, verse 10. Look what King David said to his son Solomon, and Solomon was able to record this. He says, listen, my son, accept my words, so the years of your life will be many. I instructed you in the way of wisdom. I guided you along straight paths. When you walk, your step will not, what? Be hindered. Again, think of that runner, that athlete. And when you run, say run. You will not what? Stumble. So that's a quick nosh from the Navi. The main clincher today, the main course meal, is coming from the Brit Chadashah. Okay? And that's going to be our Messianic Megillah. If we tell the whole story, the whole Megillah today, we find that Rav Shaul has an example or a teaching for us so we can learn how to run the race and how to have a victor's crown instead of a victim's frown. So I'm going to start with 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 24 in the TLB. It says, don't you know that in a stadium, the runners all run? Where? In a stadium, the runners all run. So notice that Paul is using Greek game language or grammar. He's using the language of the Greek games. He says, don't you know? Now, he's obviously not talking to a Jewish audience, is he? He's talking to a Greek audience because he's an apostle to the Gentiles, even though he's called to Israel and to the nations. He speaks to them in Greek understanding. He says, don't you know, meaning you should know this, in a stadium the runners all run, but one receives the prize. Run in such a way that you may what? Win. Now why did Paul write in this book of Corinthians this way? Does anybody know what was done in the city of Corinth? It was one of the main locations for the Greek games. Corinth was a city-state that was represented by a runner that was the top athlete that would represent the whole group. So when someone runs a race, they represent their people. You know, they say there's not too many Israeli athletes, you know, that are very famous, you know, but every once in a while you get like a Jewish athlete that's really good, you know, and wasn't there a movie about that? Yeah, there was. But think about the Greek world, and think about how Paul is using the Greek language and Greek culture to explain this. He says, run in such a way that you may what?
Win.
You may what? Win. Every competitor exercises self-control in all respects. They do it to receive a perishable crown, but we do it to receive an imperishable crown. Now, why did he say a perishable crown? Because we're not talking about a crown of gold, are we? Remember what the Greek name and word Stephanos means?
Yes.
It was a wreath, usually olive branches, that are put around the head as a sign of victory. It's a victor's crown, but it's not actually imperishable. It's perishable. It withers away. And you can dip them in gold so they'll last forever, but you know, the victor's crown was made perishable. So victories in this world, and even in the Greek world, were perishable year after year. You know, you had trainers and athletes that are learning, but it's going to all come to an end one day. Look what it says. They do it to receive a perishable crown, but we do it to receive an imperishable crown. Verse 26 says, so I run in this way, not aimlessly. So I box in this way. Did you know what one of the games was not just running, but boxing? So I box in a way in this way, not beating the air, meaning I'm not just practicing. I'm not shadow boxing. We'll read another version says. Rather, I punish my body. I mean, if you've ever worked out at the gym, it is punishment. It is. I do CrossFit training, and it is gruesome, and it is brutal, and I can't stand my trainer. Well, I like him better when we're done. But I don't really like him. He was one of my students in Bible college, and so it's interesting that I taught him, and he gives me a special price, but he does not give me any grace in the gym at all. It's terrible. I mean, it's like box jumps, and and the front squats, and the back squats, and you get the big medicine ball, and throwing it up against the wall, and you're doing sit-ups with it, you're running with it outside. I'm like, we're flipping tires. I don't mean like little tires, like the little Tinker Toy stuff. I'm talking about like the big tires, that it's terrible. And you will never see a picture on Facebook of me doing that. I am not doing it. No, I look a sweaty mess. And it's hard work, but it pays off. I said it pays off. When you work hard, it pays off. It says, I punish my body, I bring it into submission, so that after I have preached to others, watch this, here's the goal, I will not be what? Disqualified. That's what really shook me up this week. I said, wait a minute, I told my wife, we were reading this together, I said, hey, do you realize that you could train others? You could even be an athlete yourself. And when it's time for you to run your race, as well as you've trained other people to win, you could become disqualified. If we read this same verse in the International Standard Version, it's a really faithful version to always change Christ to Messiah, and it's not even messianic. But it's a great version out there that always uses Messiah over Christ for a better understanding from the Jewish perspective. It says in the same passage, verse 24, you know that in a race, all runners run, but only one wins the prize. Only one wins the what? Prize. And notice it says, don't you? Meaning the Corinthian believer should have known this because one of the games was done in Corinth. That is one of the Greek games. You must run in such a way that you may be victorious. Everyone who enters an athletic contest practices self-control or self-what? Discipline in everything. They do it to win a wreath that withers away. Now this version actually tells you it's a wreath. It goes around the head. It withers away. But we run to win a prize that never fades. Verse 26 says, that is the way I run, with a clear goal in mind. How do I run? With a clear goal in mind. That is the way I fight, or literally box, not like someone just shadow boxing. So notice when you're training, you're shadow boxing, but in the real ring, you actually fight an opponent. No, I keep on disciplining my body, making it serve me, so after that I've preached to others, or I've taught others, I myself will not somehow be disqualified. Now, I actually wrote down, I don't know if you can see this too well, I probably should have outlined it better, but I wrote down 6 things that I studied, found out disqualified Olympic athletes today. Number one way to be disqualified is going outside of your own lane. How many know you need to all stay in your lane? Not everybody can be a rabbi. Not everybody can be a greeter. Not everyone can make challah bread. Trust me, not everyone can make challah bread. Have you ever tried to make challah bread? It's like hard work. And then the people that do it so well, they're like, oh, it's easy. And then yours comes out, it's like matzo balls. You ever try to make matzo balls and you handle them too much and they're hard and they're tough and they're rough? And I had a Jewish man come up to me at Albertsons one day. He goes, hey, he saw the yarmulke on my head. He goes, hey, you know how to make matzo ball soup? And it was during Passover, and I said, yeah. And I'm about to make some right now. And he goes, well, can you come over and teach my wife how to make matzo ball soup? I got family from New York coming in, and every time she makes it, they're lumpy and hard. Please, what time can you come over? I said, sir, I can't come over. And he didn't know I was Messianic. I didn't share any of that information. I just said, you know what? I'll give you some information. Just tell her not to overhandle the matzah. And so, he said, okay, I'll tell my wife, but she's still going to mess it up. So he grumbled, kvetching. It's like part of the blood. You got to do it, right? You just got to do it. But the funny thing was, he was basically trying to find someone whose lane it was that could make good matzo ball soup. And sometimes we need to stay in our lane. Because what happens when we don't stay in our lane, we trip up other people in another lane. But we also trip up ourselves. The second thing that just qualifies a person is being barely legal. And barely legal, like for instance, there have been athletes that are supposed to be 16, but they found out they were 14. And that means you're not mature enough yet. Have you thought about the things in your life that you try to do something too soon and it was not your time yet, and you didn't have maturity? How about the third thing tonight that could be a disqualifier, jumping the gun? How many people in a relationship have jumped the gun? In a ministry have jumped the gun? Starting a business have jumped the gun? How about number 4? This is a funny one. Wearing high-tech uniforms, they say, is an unfair advantage because of unfair technology, where they try to cover up, as swimmers, more of their body to keep warm, and there's a certain amount of your body that's supposed to stay cold, because it's an unfair advantage if you're in like a big old, thick suit and keeping warm and everyone else is freezing to death, and then it's an unfair advantage. You know what I think is an unfair advantage today? Technology, like cell phones and iPads, and I'm using one right now, but it's an unfair advantage when you depend on a Bible app and you don't know where the verse is yourself. So when your phone is dead, you try to go to the Bible and you can't find the verse because it was an unfair advantage for you, but eventually it's going to make you disqualified in the game. We need to go back to reading the Bible again, knowing where the book, we should need to know there's 66 books, 37 older ones, 27 newer ones. How many know these kind of things? How many books in the Torah? 5. Oh yeah, in the Torah there's 5, right? What's the other word for Torah in Greek? Pentateuch. Did you know that? It means 5 containers for 5 books. There's a lot of things we don't know. And I think it's time for us to stop being disqualified by having unfair advantages and having technology do everything for us. We don't even remember phone numbers anymore because we push a person's picture or name and all of a sudden it dials the person. We used to have to punch the number in at least, but now we don't even know that. Number 5, finishing the race improperly. Wow. How many people start a race but they don't finish well? And then think about this last one, changing the game plan. You can't change the game plan. In fact, this is what they say. When divers tell the judges they're going to do 3 flips and they only give 2, you know what you've done? You overcommit and underdeliver. And so you don't want to change the game at the last minute. Plan the work and then work the plan. Amen? And so when you think about this illusion that Paul's making, he makes an allusion to the Greek games, which consisted of running races, leaping, wrestling, boxing, darting, javelin throwing, horse races, and foot races, which were well known to Corinthians. They all ran to win the victor's crown or wreath that was held by the president of the game or judge of the race and received by the winner. The phrase "in the race," in stadio in Greek, means in the stadium. The stadium was the running ground or place in which the boxers contended where races were run. It usually consisted of 125 paces or 625 feet, which is a furlong, about an 1/8 part of a mile. It was surrounded by a terrace and by the seats of judges of the games. Now I want you to think about the stadium right now. Remember the hippodrome? Remember the picture of the hippodrome? Yep. I want you to think about this as you also think about who's qualified to be in the games. This rocked my world this week. At one end was fixed the boundary or goal to which they ran, meaning you always have to have a goal. None but free men could enter the lists. You couldn't be a slave. You had to be free. You had to be a citizen. You had to know who you are. Aren't you glad that Gentiles are allowed to be a part of the commonwealth of Israel? Yes. Aren't you glad that collectively Jews and Gentiles can be called a remnant of people, that we are kings and priests unto God? Aren't you glad that we can run our race knowing who we are, that we're not bound anymore, we're free? How many know Messiah came to set us free so that we could run the race and not be disqualified? That was Rav Shaul's words. Look what it goes on to say. None but free men could enter the lists, and only after they had satisfied the appointed trainers for 10 months, undergone the necessary preliminary training. Now, I'm going to try to wrap this up real quick because some of this I'm not going to be able to get into today. It's just more than I probably have time to share. But I want to show you the stadium. Hebrews 12:1 says, "Therefore, having so vast a cloud," what I call a heavenly stadium of witnesses, surrounding us. Remember the stadium? Everybody's watching. And throwing off everything that hinders us, and especially the sin that easily entangles us. Let us keep running with endurance the race set before us. And we don't know who wrote Hebrews. It's probably someone that traveled with Paul, probably not Paul himself, because he didn't put his name in the beginning of the book. But he writes about all the same people. I think it's Apollos. Some say Barnabas. And you know, Paul and Apollos were two teachers that were competing in the first century. Some say they're of Paul, some say they're of Apollos. He had a lot of knowledge. He seemed to also refer to the stadium. Because if you look at it, he says, throwing off everything that hinders us. Did you know the Greek kings were done with no clothes on? Because it was their physical strength against nature itself, because the nature was the gods that they were coming against. And so they had to throw off everything that could hinder. But even though that's pagan, to exercise in the nude, did you know gymnasium, a gym means naked exercise? In a sense, we're all naked before God.
Right.
Just like Adam was in the garden. And before sin, we didn't need to put clothing on because we were clothed with God's glory.
Right.
It's only our sin that we try to cover up in our shame. Adam and Eve were naked and unashamed before they fell.
Right.
And you're naked before God. What are we trying to cover up? Let's throw away the sin that easily besets us. That meant any extra weight or baggage that held us back. And he says, run with what? Endurance. Now, real quick, the training program in Israel among Jews was way different from Greeks. But I want to show you something here, that as a Jewish Pharisaical trained rabbi, Paul had to relate and communicate these spiritual disciplines of the Jewish world to the larger Gentile world. He accomplished this commission of Messiah to make disciples of all nations by interpreting discipleship in light of the athletic training of an Olympiad who strives to win the prize. We will learn how to become discipled, developed, and determined in running this race and finishing our course for the Messiah's victor's crown. You and I, if we will become disciples or disciplined ones, as it tells us in the breakdown of the definition, that we start in Messiah's training program as a follower, submissive to someone who's guiding us. We continue on to become a disciple, a disciplined one who will be willing to be trained. But third, they became apostles, which means a sent one who is willing to be released. The only way we can really fulfill this mandate of Matthew 4:19 is we become a disciple. Follow me, and I will make you what? Fishers of men. It took a lot of physical strength, just like an athlete, to become a fisherman. And this verse can be broken down three ways. Follow me, I will make you, and then fishers of men is the end result. Follow me means we're modeling the Messiah when we're committed to be discipled. I will make you is Yeshua's commitment to disciple us as he mentors us. And then number three, fishers of men is the outcome. We become committed to disciple others when we're molded into a maker. He said, go out and make disciples. Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. See, you can't make disciples until you've been made. Until you become a disciple, you can't disciple someone else. Until you learn these disciplines, the way the athlete would learn the disciplines of javelin throwing and running and wrestling. In fact, it's such a powerful principle that I believe there's actually 7 things, and I put in the Bible college curriculum that I'm going to have us do as a yeshiva in this new year. And it's going to be accredited, and many of you are going to get your minister's license. Yeah, I said many of you are going to get your minister's license. It's a 2-year process. You're going to get your minister's license, and some of you are also going to get degrees if you continue on and apply the education you're learning to getting a degree. If you'd like a degree, it's going to be available for you. Right. It's accredited. It's actually accredited. The first year is already accredited right now, and I'm in the process of writing the second year. And this is the steps that we take you through in the second quarter of the year, and that is, number 1, Yeshua said, be a follower. Right. A follower honors and submits to the leader, the mentor. And then as a follower, the first thing you do when you follow Messiah is you learn. You learn the Torah, you learn the prophets, you learn the principles of Messiah. And a learner is teachable, And that means daily we're learning to apply the Word of God. The third thing you learn as a disciple of Messiah is to be a giver. Now, anytime you think about giver, you think, oh, you're going to take an offering right now. No, you're not going to take an offering. You're going to give your life. What does it profit a man if you gain the whole world, but you lose your own soul? If you give it, you'll gain it. So Yeshua asked his disciples not only to follow him, not only to learn from him, learn of me, my yoke is easy, my burden is light, but give yourself. Give me your time. Give me your talent. Give me your treasure. And when you give that to him, you also meet the needs of others. Now, number 4, a lover. Now this one always catches people off guard. What do you mean a lover? I was a Latin lover in the world. No, not that kind of lover. You gotta love God with all your heart, soul, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. So you gotta love life. You gotta love your own self. And then you can love somebody else. So you love God, love yourself, love someone else. And that's a principle of being a lover. A lover of God, a lover of people. Number 5, you've got to be a worshiper of God. So once you're a lover of God, it's easier now to worship God. And that's one of the spiritual disciplines that we've lost. In fact, most of our songs today are songs about ourselves. I'm not going to start listing all the songs out there in the world. We used to sing songs about God. Right. Now we have a tendency to sing in the Christian world a lot of songs about ourselves and how strong we are and how great we are and how mighty we are and how mighty our God is and how great our God is. Amen? And then after that, you become an intercessor. That's another spiritual discipline the church has lost and the Messianic believers need to regain, is to be an intercessor. One who prayerfully stands in the gap, intercedes for God's purposes and those that need intervention. And number 7, a maker. One who multiplies and makes disciples that can be molded into next generation leaders. What if you could learn these 7 principles? And what if you could teach them to somebody else? Right. Messiah's training program. Right. What if that could be you? I love the fact that the Apostle Paul calls it a wrestling match when we pray. Yes. As he says, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. But look what he says in verse 18 of Ephesians 6. We pray always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit. Not just for yourself, but for all the saints. So prayer is like a wrestling match. Remember when Jacob wrestled with an angel? It was a wrestling match. That's what prayer is. We don't wrestle against each other, but we wrestle in the heavenly realms when we pray. And really, this is the victory that we know we have because Rav Shaul said it. He says, thanks be to God who keeps giving us the what? The victory through our Lord Yeshua the Messiah. I believe that in the heart of Paul, he wanted to teach the Gentiles the Jewish discipleship program of Messiah. But he couldn't. He had to give them line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, in bite-sized portions they could handle. So he took the discipleship program and he spoke it in Gentile ways that they could understand. But ultimately, you and I are athletes today. And if we will follow what he said to Timothy, that I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith. It doesn't matter if Paul was mentioning running, or whether he was mentioning wrestling, or fighting, or boxing. Every hurdle that Joseph went through is what Paul the Apostle went through. He was in prison, he was whipped, he was beaten, all for the name of Messiah. But ultimately, he says, I finished. I finished the race. That means I don't have a victim's frown. I have a victor's what? Crown. I have the victory that Messiah won for me 2,000 years ago. What are you facing today? You should be wearing a victor's crown. Because it doesn't matter what you're going through, you're already victorious. You're no longer a victim. You have the victory. You are more than a conqueror today. Today I want you to fill in 5 things that I want you to walk away with, and I hope it really changes your life and the way you view this next year. Number 1, you need to run with purpose. Rav Shaul said, you got to set a goal if you're going to win the prize. You got to run with purpose. In other words, there was always a goal in mind. Number 2, you got to run with patience. Patience means it takes self-discipline to develop endurance. An athlete is trained, just like Yeshua trained his disciples, to be followers and learners and givers and lovers and worshipers and intercessors and makers of other disciples, you and I need to be trained like an athlete's trained. We need to toughen it up, baby. We need to get in there and sweat a little bit and work a little harder. We need to dream big and we need to work hard. If you want the results, you got to do the work. Amen? Amen. I said it takes more than 2 weeks of a New Year's resolution to do the work. You got to really put in the effort and work hard. Number 3, you got to run with passion. That means you check your passion level every once in a while through personal examination to ensure that you're going to pass the test. This is what he said when he says, I want to make sure I'm not disqualified myself. What good is it to stir up a passion in you if I lose mine and then I get disqualified at the last hour before I win the prize? Last 2 things I want to share with you are 4, overcome every hurdle like Joseph and live in Messiah's victory. Overcome every hurdle like Joseph and live in Messiah's victory. And number 5, say this with me. Finish the race set before you and fight the good fight of faith. Did you receive this message today? Would you give the Lord a hand clap of praise if you believe this message is going to stir you on to 2017 being a year of victory? How many are determined that they're going to be victorious this year? No more victims, no more oive, no more kvetching, no more living underneath your privileges, no more overcommitting, right? And under-delivering. Let's stand to our feet today and let's believe God for the blessing. Martin was going to say the blessing at the end, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. And let's prepare our hearts today for what God has for us this afternoon. It's going to be a good day. We need to order a pizza, a cheese one.
Sounds good.
Sounds good, huh? I think we might do it. Stretch your hands for the blessing. Number 6, 24 through 26. This blessing is that you will, like the Vulcan salute, live long and prosper. As a good Jew, he understood what it meant to have God on our side, El Shaddai. May the name of God come upon us as I say this blessing in the Hebrew tongue. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yihuneka Yisa Adonai panav elecha ve'aser lecha shalom. Amen. May the Lord Adonai bless and keep you. May he shine his face upon you and be gracious to you. May he lift up his countenance upon you and give you perfect peace in the name of the Prince of Peace. May you keep fighting. May you keep running the race. May you finish well and finish strong. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen. God bless you today. Amen.